author of The Adventure of the Twisted Truths and host of the Book and Dagger. Today, we're going to be continuing our read-along of The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Where we last left off, Smaug had flown down and attacked Lake Town. He destroyed the town, but Bard, the dragon shooter of the line of Geryon, had shot Smaug in his one weak spot and saved the town. And when we last left off, the birds had all flown out, were carrying news of Smaug's death all over the world, which could have some very interesting ramifications. And the Elven King has arrived with his massive army of elves, and his craftsmen are helping the people of Lake Town kind of build shelters. He's brought food, and now when we left off, he and Bard and his massive elven army and a number of fishermen who have armed themselves and men of the lake, they're all marching towards the mountain. We're going to pick up where we left off. Chapter 15, The Gathering of the Clouds. So basically it says, now we will return to Bilbo and the Dwarves. All night one of them had watched, but when morning came they had not heard or seen any sign of danger. But more thickly the birds were gathering. Their companies came flying from the south, and crows that still lived above the mountain were wheeling and crying unceasingly above. And Thorin says something strange is happening because it's autumn, birds should all have flown away, but there are many birds and many carrion birds as if a battle is about to be fought. Bilbo suddenly sees the old thrush that, if you recall from a couple chapters back, he threw a rock at the old thrush because he didn't like it listening, but it's actually the thrush that, if it hadn't listened, it wouldn't have been able to tell Bard about the dragon's weak spot, and Bard wouldn't have been able to shoot the dragon, so it's a good thing Bilbo didn't hit that old thrush with a rock. Anyway, so Bilbo points and says, hey, there's that old thrush again. Sure enough, the old thrush was there. As Bilbo pointed, he flew towards them and perched on a stone nearby. They fluttered his wings and sang. They cocked his head on one side as if to listen, and again he sang, and again he listened. I believe he is trying to tell us something, said Balin. But I cannot follow the speech of such birds. It is very quick and difficult. Can you make it out, Baggins? Not very well, said Bilbo. As a matter of fact, he could make nothing of it at all. But the old fellow seems very excited. I only wish he was a raven, said Balin. I thought you did not like them. You seemed very shy of them when we came this way before. Those were crows, and nasty, suspicious-looking creatures at that, and rude as well. You may have heard the ugly names they were calling after us. The ravens are different. There used to be great friendship between them and the people of Thror. They often brought us secret news and were rewarded with such bright things as they coveted to hide in their dwellings. They live many a year, and their memories are long, and they hand on their wisdom to their children. I knew many among the ravens of the rocks when I was a dwarf lad. This very height was once named Ravenhill, because there was a wise and famous pair, old Kark and his wife, that lived here above the guard chamber, but I don't suppose that any of the ancient breed linger here now. No sooner had he finished speaking than the old thrush gave a loud call and immediately flew away. We may not understand, but that old bird understands us, I am sure, said Balin. Keep watch now and see what happens. And before long, a old bird, Tolkien describes as a most decrepit old bird, comes flying out. He's getting blind. He can hardly fly, and the top of his head is bald. I personally think this is a very funny touch of Tolkien. Tolkien's making fun of this old crow, but anyway. He was an aged raven of great size. He lied stiffly on the ground before them, slowly flapped his wings, and bobbed towards Thorin. O Thorin, son of Thrain, and Balin, son of Fundin, he croaked, and Bilbo could understand what he said, for he used ordinary language and not bird speech. I am Roic, son of Kark. Kark is dead, but he is well known to you once. It is 100 years and 53 since I came out of the egg, but I do not forget what my father told me. Now we really know this bird is old because he's 153 years old, which is crazy for a bird. Anyway, but he's one of the great ravens. So anyway, so he tells them the Smaug is dead, so all the dwarves get really excited. And they start capering around, and they say, the treasure is ours. And Roic says, yes, dead. The thrush, may his feathers never fall, saw him die, and we may trust his words. He saw him fall in battle with the men of Esgaroth the third night back from now at the rising of the moon. It was some time before Thorin could bring the dwarves to be silent and listen to the raven's news. At length, when he had told all the tale of the battle, he went on. So much for joy, Thorin Oakenshield. You may go back to your halls in safety. All the treasure is yours for the moment, but many are gathering hither beside the birds. The news of the death of the Guardian has already gone far and wide, and the legend of the wealth of Thror has not been lost in the telling during many years. Many are eager for a share of the spoil. Already a host of elves is on the way, and carrion birds are with them, hoping for battle and slaughter. By the lake, men murmur that their sorrows are due to the dwarves. They are homeless, and many have died, and smog has destroyed their town. Your own wisdom must decide your course, but 13 is a small remnant of the great folk of Durn that once dwelt here and now are scattered far. If you will listen to my counsel, you will not trust the master of the lake men, but rather him that shot the dragon with his bow. Bard is he, of the race of Dale, of the line of Girion. He is a grim man, but true. We would see peace once more among dwarves and men and elves after the long desolation, but it may cost you dear in gold. I have spoken. And then Thorin bursts out angrily. He says, Our thanks. You and your people shall not be forgotten, but none of the gold shall thieves take off, or the violent carry off while we are alive. If you would earn our thanks still more, bring us news of any that draw near. Also, I would beg of you, if there any of you are still young and strong of wing, that you would send messengers to our kin in the mountains of the north, both west from here and east, and tell them of our plight. But go especially to my cousin Dane in the Iron Hills, for he has many people well armed and dwells nearest to this place. Bid him hasten. The Broic says he will not say if this counsel is good or bad, but he will do what can be done, and he flies off. Thorin says, Back now to the mountain. We have little time to lose. And little food to use, cried Bilbo, always practical on such points. In any case, he felt that the adventure was, properly speaking, over with the death of the dragon, in which he was much mistaken. And he had given most of his share of the and he would have given up most of his share of the profits for a peaceful winding up of the affairs. Anyway, all the dwarves go back to the mountain, and basically, so they set to work fortifying it. They start blocking off the main entrance. They do some exploring. They find lots of old miners' tools and weapons and whatnot. And they're in communication with the Ravens. The Ravens come and let them know that the Elven King and his forces, they let them know their progress, where they are exactly. They're going around the lake. The Ravens help them find some of their ponies that survived smog. And they were 4 days gone, and by that time they knew that the joined armies of the lake men and the elves were hurrying towards the mountain. But now their hopes were higher, for they had food for some weeks with care. Chiefly cram, of course, and they were very tired of it, but cram is better than nothing. Which, I don't know if I read this part earlier, but early in the books they say that they had they were basically, that's all they're eating is cram. And it's basically like this biscuity substance that's, as Tolkien described it, it's no fun except as a chewing exercise, but it fills the stomach, so that's it food. Anyway, so they basically start fortifying the mountain in the event of the Elven King coming, and there came a night when suddenly there were many lights as of fires and torches away south in Dale before them. They have come, said Balin, and their camp is very great. They must have come into the valley under the cover of dusk along both banks of the river. That night the dwarves slept little. The morning was still pale when they saw a company approaching. From behind the wall they watched them come to the valley's head and climb slowly down. Before long they could see that both men of the lake, armed as if for war, and elvish bowmen were among them. At length the foremost of these climbed the tumbled rocks, appeared at the top of the falls, and very great was their surprise to see the pool before them and the gate blocked with a wall of new-hewn stone. As they stood pointing and speaking to one another, Thorin hailed them. Who are you, he called in a very loud voice, that come as if in war to the gates of Thorin, son of Thrain, king under the mountain, and what do you desire? But they answered nothing, and they basically just turn around and go back. And soon it's not long before Thorin and the dwarves and Bilbo, they can see from their mountain, they can see the elves in their camp, and they can hear the elven harps and sweet music begin to play, and they can catch the fragrance of woodland flowers blossoming in spring, and they smell good food. Then Bilbo longed to escape from the dark fortress and go down and join in the mirth and feasting by the fires. Some of the younger dwarves were moved in their hearts too, and they muttered that they wished things had fallen out otherwise, and they might welcome such folks as friends, but Thorin scowled. Then the dwarves themselves brought forth harps and instruments regained from the hoard, and made music to soften his mood. Their song was not an elvish song, and was much like the song they had sung long ago before in Bilbo's little hobbit hole. Under the mountain, dark and tall, the king has come into his hall. His foe is dead, the worm of dread, and ever so his foe shall fall. The sword is sharp, the spear is long, the arrow swift, the gate is strong. The heart is bold that looks on gold. The dwarves no more shall suffer wrong. The dwarves of yore made mighty spells, while hammers fell like ringing bells, in places deep where dark things sleep, in hollow halls beneath the fells. Now call we over mountains cold, come back until the caverns old. Here at the gates the king awaits, his hand are rich with gems and gold. This is, of course, I just read a small portion. There's so much more of the song. But anyway, this song appears to please Thorin, and he smiled again and grew merry, and he began reckoning the distance to the Iron Hills and how long it would be before Dane could reach the lonely mountain if he had set out as soon as the message reached him. But Bilbo's heart fell. Both of the song and the talk, they sounded much too warlike. Anyway, early the next morning, a company of spearmen is seen coming across the river, bearing with them the green banner of the Elven King and the blue banner of the lake. They advanced until they stood right before the wall of the gate, and Thorin again asked them, "Who are you that come armed for war? To the gates of Thorin, son of Thrain, king of the mountain." And this time a tall man steps forward, dark of hair and grim of face, and he cries, "Hail, Thorin! Why do you fence yourself like a robber in his hold? We are not yet foes, and we rejoice that you are alive beyond our hope. We came expecting to find none living here, yet now we are met. There is a matter for parley and a council." Thorin asked, "Who are you, and what would you parley?" And the man says he is Bard, and by his hand the dragon was slain, and your treasure delivered. Is that not a matter that concerns you? Moreover, I am by right descent the heir of Girion of Dale, and in your hoard is mingled much of the wealth of his halls and towns, which of old Smaug stole. Is not that a matter of which we may speak? Further, in his last battle, Smaug destroyed the dwellings of the men of Esgaroth, and I am yet the servant of their master. I would speak for him and ask whether you have no thought for the sorrow and misery of his people. They aided you in your distress, and in recompense you have thus far brought ruin only, though doubtless undesigned. Anyway, these words are, of course, fair and true, if proudly and grimly spoken, and Bilbo thinks that Thorin will see the justice in them. However, of course, he forgot that gold upon which a dragon has sat creates dragon sickness, and then, of course, so Thorin is getting this. And also, dwarves just naturally want to keep their gold if they consider theirs. And also, Thorin hasn't seen this hoard in forever, and he's just heard stories about it, and it is basically this, picture a mountain full of gold, and he's richer than any king anywhere. He's probably richer than every king in Middle-earth combined. Anyway, but so Thorin says, "You put your worst case last and in the chief place. To the treasure of my people no man has a claim, because Smaug, who stole it from us, also robbed him of life or home. The treasure was not his, that his evil deeds should be amended with a share of it. The price of the goods and the assistance that we received the Lakemen we will fairly pay in due time. But nothing will we give, not even a loaf's worth, under threat of force. While an armed host lies before my doors, we will look on you as foes and thieves. It is in my mind to ask what share of the inheritance you would have paid to our kindred had you found the hoard unguarded and us slain." "A just question," replied Bard, "but you are not dead, and we are not robbers. Moreover, the wealthy may have pity beyond right on the needy that befriended them when they were in want, and still my other claims remain unanswered." Thorin says that he will not parley with the Elven King, who he has very not fond memories of, which is a fair point. And he says, "Begone now ere our arrows fly," and basically just dismisses them. He says he says if Bard wants any gold, he's going to have to come alone with men unarmed and no elves present. And Bard says, "The Elven King is my friend, and he has succored the people of the lake in their need, though they had no claim but friendship on him. We will give you time to repent your words. Gather your wisdom ere we return." Then he departed and went back to the camp. Anyway, some hours later, banner bearers and trumpeters returned and blew a blast, and they cry out, "In the name of Esgaroth in the forest, we speak unto Thrain's son Oakenshield, calling himself the king of the mountain, and we bid him consider well the claims that have been urged, or be declared our foe. At the least he shall deliver 1/12 portion of the treasure unto Bard, as the dragon slayer and the heir of Girion. From that portion Bard will himself contribute to the aid of Esgaroth, but if Thorin would have the friendship and honor of the lands about as his sires had of old, then he will also give somewhat of his own for the comfort of the men of the lake." This makes Thorin very angry, of course, so he seized a bow of horn and shot an arrow at the speaker. It smote into his shield and stuck there quivering. "Since such is your answer," he called in return, "I declare the mountain besieged. You shall not depart from it until you call on your side for a truce and a parley. We will bear no weapons against you, but we will leave you to your gold. You may eat that if you will." With that, the messengers depart, and the dwarves were left to consider their case. And Bilbo, of course, is very miserable and disapproving of the whole turn of affairs. "This whole place still stinks of dragon," he grumbled to himself, "and it makes me sick, and cram is beginning simply to stick in my throat." That is chapter 15. We'll be back soon with chapter 17 coming soon.